This is Asta, and this is Yuno. They, as you should already be very much aware, are the protagonists and deuterotagonists, yes, that is exactly how you pronounce that word, of the Shonen Jump series Black Clover. And the last time we saw these two in the manga, they were racing off to a place very few Shonen Jump characters have ever gone before, outer space, in order to defeat the most dangerous antagonist their series has ever met. This is a very high demand for two boys who just recently turned 18, but like many other main characters in Shonen manga, they are the only two on the good side who realistically stand a chance against this godlike opponent. Though I guess you could argue that Noelle would be a likely third option, I still don't think we've seen the full extent of what her Leviathan form can do. Same with Yami and Mario Leona, it's not completely out of question that they put up a decent effort against Lucius, especially since after his power-up, Yami was able to easily handle one of the clones. Not to mention, Yami seems to always find a way to get involved in the final fight each arc anyway, so it wouldn't shock me for him to show up on the moon base or wherever Lucius is currently and throw his hat in the ring. But as things stand now, they were all too preoccupied with their own personal battles, so unless the bottom finds a way for them to get up to where Lucius currently is, Asta and Yuno are the only ones who are able to step up to the plate. It's quite literally not an exaggeration to say that the fate of their world rests in their hands, but what if I told you that not only do they determine whether or not their world survives, but also if they appear in the very next chapter, they will mark the end of Black Clover, making the upcoming chapter 377 the most important chapter of the manga in 2025. Okay, admittedly, I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but honestly, not by much. Because, as you know, we are getting 2 new chapters on January 10th, just a few days away as of the recording of this video, that are meant to close out the next volume, with chapter 377 receiving 21 pages and chapter 378 getting a total of 19. And 378 will most likely end on some kind of big cliffhanger to drum up excitement for the next batch of chapters. But 377, that's the one we want to focus on. Because in the last batch of chapters, we saw Yami unlock a brand new devilish transformation, allowing him to one-shot a Lucius clone, and he was able to reconcile with his long-lost sister. And we got to see Nock get his very first win since his introduction against his brother Morgan, the strongest paladin we've seen yet, putting an end to both of their side plotlines in this arc. And in the batch before, we had a similar resolution with Noelle, not only finishing the fight between her and her mother turned paladin, but also giving closure to her series-long plot of finally gaining the love and respect she always wanted from her older siblings. With Solid and Nebra both finally admitting that their hate for their younger sister was due to their own feelings of jealousy towards her. There were a lot of fights set up for this arc, but these were the two that fans were the most invested in, and now that they're done, we realistically don't need to see the others. I mean, sure, it would be fun to see the rest of the Black Bulls work together to take down the numerous Lucius clones scattered around the capital. Watching Magna and Luck tag team one back in chapter 370 was without a doubt one of the hypest moments we've had this entire saga, at least in my humble opinion, but these fights don't really hold much in terms of relevance to the overall plot. They're just fun little side adventures for us to go on before getting back to the main story. And this is why I say that chapter 377 is going to be the most important chapter to release in 2025, because there's 2 options on what we can get in this chapter. Either one of the many fights left to resolve in the Clover Kingdom's capital, or the beginning of Asta and Yuno versus Lucius. Which, if it's the latter, then that likely means we are jumping headfirst into the finale of the series. No more side plots, no extra fights, just these two taking on the big bad to end it all. And to be very clear, this is not the timeline we want to go down, because if this is what chapter 377 is focused on, then there is a very strong chance that Black Clover will end either by the end of 2025 or very early on in 2026. And look, I know that Black Clover was never the most popular title in Shonen Jump, and best I say it was around the top 4 running series in the magazine before it made a move to Jump Giga, but it has been and still is my favorite, and I'm just not ready for it to end yet. I know it can't continue on for much longer, not where we are currently in the plot, but I'll take any excuse to extend it even just a bit. I especially don't want to see it end with all these battles being set up and then us not getting resolution to any of them. I know it's been over a decade now, and I should probably move past this, but I still haven't gotten over the fact that that happened at the end of Bleach. We had a bunch of fights set up at the end that we ended up just skipping past in order to get to the final resolution. But hey, we're at least getting the 1000-year Blood War anime to give us everything we missed out on and more to the finale of that series. There's no guarantee though that we'll get the same kind of treatment for Black Clover. I just don't think it's popular enough to Japan to warrant that. Hell, it's honestly still a toss-up to me if we're even going to be getting the anime back to finish the Spade arc. But it's not all doom and gloom. There is still an option that lets us continue the story for just a bit more before heading into the big fight, because Tabata might have chose to focus the entirety of chapter 377 on one of the Black Bull teams that splintered off to go toe-to-toe with one of the Lucius clones. And if he did for that chapter, then in all likelihood, 378 will as well. If I counted correctly, chapter 370 set up 5 battles, well, technically 6, but we just finished one in the last batch, which means we could have at least 5 more chapters before leaving the capital, assuming each fight takes one whole chapter to finish. And that's if we're just sticking with the fights that directly involve a member of the Black Bulls. Because we could also devote a chapter to Fogoyan, giving him his long needed character development in the form of the spirit dive that fans have been calling for since he got Salamander. We still need to introduce the Greater Spirit, who both Mimosa and Soul are prime candidates for it to pair up with, assuming it's not going to go with someone that has yet to be reintroduced to the story. And speaking of characters that need to be reintroduced, there is still a small chance that we could have some of the long lost missing characters like Mars or Leo reappear this arc and get their big moment in the spotlight. And hell, I still think Seke is going to have some big scene before this arc is over to complete his evolution as a character. All of this has a strong potential to go down before we jump into the final fight, and that's assuming that Lucius is the final big bad of the series, because until we see him do something, we still have to consider that Adramelic is waiting in the background for the best time for him to make his move. I know a lot of fans don't like the idea that he's been tricking Lucius this entire time, and that he's going to be revealed to be the real villain of the series going forward, but how else do we explain that he's been missing since chapter 336, despite being one of the heavy hitters in Lucius' army? The only other explanation I can think of is that once Asta and Yuno make it up to Lucius' base, he's going to be there to face off against Yuno while Asta goes and 1v1s Lucius. Which honestly, if that happens, I would be 100% down for, because that would just extend the fight even more. But any of this happening is going to depend solely on how much longer Tabata wants to continue Black Clover. Because as far as I can tell, Shueisha seems perfectly fine with letting him continue the series over in Giga for as long as he needs, with no sign of them rushing him towards an ending. Which does make sense, because like I already mentioned, when Black Clover was in the weekly magazine, it was one of the top 4 earners for the publisher, with the other 3 being One Piece, My Hero, and JJK, which 2 of those have already ended in the last year. And while Black Clover's volume sales don't bring in nearly as much money as JJK or My Hero did, they're definitely not going to be willing to throw out the money that is bringing in until they can find replacements for those 2 series. So again, how much longer Black Clover has is going to be up to Tabata, and based on what I heard about the Q&A he did recently in Spain, it seems like he's actually happy drawing the manga again with his new schedule, so he might not be in a hurry to reach the ending either. Which means there's a strong possibility that the plan is to continue the series well into 2026, even maybe pouring into mid-2027. Hell, there's even a chance that we might see it continue on to 2028, but we'll know for sure once we get our hands on the next chapter on January 10th. But until then, we'll just have to sit back and wait to see what Yuki Tabata has planned for us next. That's going to do it for the video. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and let me know in the comments down below how much longer do you think Black Clover has before it does finally end.